Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is the English translation of the Majlis of Hazrath Maulana Qamar Uzzaman Saheb Damat Barakatuhum, which took place on Saturday, the 19th of Jumadul Akhirah 1446, 21st of December 2024. Our Hazrat Wala is saying that, reading from the Kitab and quoting, ألا ترى أن الحاجة باب إلى الله وسبب يوصلك إليه. तू देखता नहीं कि मोहताज होना बड़ा जरिया है अल्लाह तक पहुंचने का और बड़ा वसीला है जो तुझको खुदा तक पहुंचावे. This muhtaji and this state of need that Allah Ta'ala has created us with or in, it is a door which will take you to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and it is a very great means for you to reach Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Have you not seen what Allah Ta'ala has to say? Ya ayyuhan nas antumul fuqara'u ila Allah Wallahu huwal ghaniyyul hamid. O people, you are in need of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is all independent and all praiseworthy. So this muhtaji and being in need, this year Allah Ta'ala has done for us out of His grace. And the more we have this year in our mind, the closer we will get to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So, in yourself being in need to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, that will be progress for you, advancement for you. It will be loftiness and honor for you. Take that ananiyat out of you, that I can do and I have achieved and it is me. Take that out of you. Jisne mitaya apna namo nisha haft iqlim ka bana sulta. The person who erased all his traces, the person who humbled himself completely and totally for Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, that person then eventually becomes the leader. So according to how much you lower yourself, you humble yourself for the sake of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, that's how much of advancement, progress and honor Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will give you. Now Allah Ta'ala open up the reality of this year to us. You know, this is a fantastic kitab. Hazrat Haji Imdadullah said, Ashraf Ali, translate this kitab. It will be of great benefit to the people. Hazrat Anvi says that I understood very well that I wasn't deserving of doing this year, but it was the hukam of my Shaykh. So therefore, I plucked up the courage and I started doing what he asked me to do. Now this particular ayat that's quoted here, Ya ayyuhan nas antumul fuqara'u ila Allah. How many times have we not read it? However, have we read it with this thought in mind, that Allah Ta'ala is making apparent in this ayat the reality of insan, that Allah Ta'ala has created him in need. Allah Ta'ala has always put him in need to Allah. He will always need Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Now, for this year to be learned and understood and opened up to us, it is for this reason that mashayikh ke paas jaya jata hai, that we have to go and we need to go to the mashayikh. So فَجَعَلَ الْفَقْرَ, so Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has made need to him, for him, the means of reaching him. The means of reaching him. وَالدَّوَامْ بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ. मुहताजी को सबब बनाया अल्लाह तक पहुंचने का और उसके रूबरू हमेशा हाजिर रहने का. So this muhtaji and this need, Allah Ta'ala has made it a means of reaching Him and always being ever present in His presence, always being hazir in His presence. You know, some women folk asked, or were they the women folk in the house of Hazrat Tanvi? They said, now, where is he gone to now? Didn't he just study for so many long years? Where is he gone? But what was it after all? After all, it was this, that even beyond this, there was something else. And what answer then did they eventually have to give themselves? That ab tak parta tha, ab bunne ke liye gaye. Up till now, he was learning. But now, he's gone to actually get well done. In simple words, what would we say? That ilm that he had achieved, he had received from his asatiza, he's gone to go and make that rasikh and let it be well embedded in the heart, and so that it can reach the deep recesses of the heart. So Hazrat Tanvi went to Hazrat Haji Imdadullah for this very reason. And Hazrat Haji Imdadullah accepted him in his presence. So for this year, this is also something that you have to understand in your mind, that I am in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this on its own will be the negation of pride and arrogance. However, if a person has this in his mind, this fawqiyat and ananiyat, that I done and I achieved and I know, etc., then he should remember very well that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like that at all. So, at this point in time, we want you to understand the qawl of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Man arafa nafsahu arafa rabbahu. The person who recognizes himself has truly recognized Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, man arafa nafsahu bil jahli arafa rabbahu bil ilm. Whoever understands himself, recognizes himself to be an embodiment of ignorance, he will recognize Allah to be that Zat, that supreme being who has all knowledge, ultimate knowledge. Man arafa nafsahu bid-du'fi arafa rabbahu bil-quwwah. Whoever has recognized himself to be weak, he will recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be strong. You know, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Saheb used to go and relieve himself. Sometimes when he would exit and come out, he would then turn his attention to us and he would tell us that, trying to explain this, कि देखो, banda kitna muhtaj hai, that the servant is so in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Qulub ko sambhal nahi saka. You know the sandstones, the dela in the toilet the person uses for istinja, simple stone like that. I could not hold it, it fell out of my hands. And then he would go further to say that, see, Allah Ta'ala made intizam and arrangements for water. You just turn your hand like that and the water comes out. Otherwise, and if not, from where to where we would be going just to get some little bit water. Now, all of this here was ma'rifat that he was teaching us, this type of recognition. But who understands these things? You know, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab had some very great level of annihilation of oneself. Bari fanayati. Hazrat would not understand himself to be anything. This was his hal, this was his kayfiyat. On one instance, one day, some dessert, firni or something was brought to Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab. He hardly just took some small portion, just a spoon, and then he passed it on to the granddaughter and said that you eat it. If I eat it, I will commit sin. Now, this is it. He left it. He did not eat it. For the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he done that, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then something is achieved, something is given from the side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, what is it? It is this here, da'in nafs wa ta'al. Abandon the nafs, leave the nafs, and then come. So, Aina abgheek? Where would I find you, O Allah? Inda munkasiratil qulub. You will find me in the broken hearts. That's where I reside. So this nafs, this is actually a fundamental enemy of insan. You know, Hazrat Haji Imdadullah used to say, मैं तो नामो निशा मिटा बेटा शोहरा उड़ा दिया मेरा किसने, that I erased all signs of myself. I humbled myself completely, self-annihilation. I just wonder so much that who has gone around spreading my popularity and fame? Hazrat Haji Imdadullah. And who was sitting in front of him? Who was he reading these couplets to? It was none other than Hazrat Maulana Qasim Sahab, Hazrat Maulana Tanvi, Hazrat Maulana Rashid Ahmad Gangohi, and the other luminaries of the time there. Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq and the hidayat of making islah, rectifying, rehabilitating our nafs. And this is why we have been created. And this is why we read this kalima. इसीलिए इसी कलिमा के लिए मश्क कराया जाता है. And this is it. This is why we make mashq of this kalima, so that we can understand that we are weak and Allah is the Almighty. We are ignorant and Allah is all-knowing. So the author is going on to say, من عرف نفسه عرف ربه. أي من عرف نفسه بحاجتها وفاقتها وافتقارها وذلها ومسكنتها عرف ربه بعزه وسلطانه وجوده وإحسانه إلى غير ذلك من أوصاف الكمال. That a person who understands, he recognizes himself to be needy. He recognizes his nafs to be in need, to be in a state of destitution and need. He understands himself and his nafs to be with that of disgrace. So if this is what his understanding is of himself, then inevitably he would then understand and recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be the owner of all respect. He will understand the strength of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the generosity of Allah, the kindness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the list goes on from all the other different characteristics and awsaf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And especially from the different creations, this particular creation of insan and man, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made him more need. And Allah ta'ala has repeated for him over and over again his need. Because he is in need all the time in the different aspects. He is in need regarding his everyday life, and he is in need regarding his akhirat. Understand what Allah Ta'ala has said, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ, that we have created man in toil and in difficulty regarding his dunya and his akhirat. It is because of the nobility, his nobility. In the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah ta'ala has created him in need. Don't you see that Allah ta'ala has made even animals sometimes more independent in the way that he has created their bodies, their fur, their wool, etc. And this is not the case with man and insan. He has to go and look for clothing. Then he will be able to warm himself and protect himself from the elements of nature. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has intended to test insan and man. So he has made him in need to, in different ways, in many different ways, to see that now to sort out these needs of his, will he now start using his mind to achieve those needs, or to put plans and schemes into place? Or will he turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding what is allotted for him and what is written out to him? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala desired that he becomes beloved to create this bond of love between the servant and himself. So when Allah Ta'ala has put upon him need, and then thereafter Allah Ta'ala raises and removes that need, then what happens to insan? Insan finds some great sweetness within his nafs and himself. He finds peace in his heart. So Allah Ta'ala does this, and this is repeated over and over again for one reason, so that this love for Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala can increase over and over again. So Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq and the hidayat of walking this path of His. This ilm and this knowledge, it is the knowledge of the Ahlullah. So this ma'rifat and this recognition which Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam got, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also grant us a great portion from that. The Buzrugane-Deen made mehnat to get all of this here. They carried out abundant dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam took great lesson and deep lesson from one thing. Now this kitab is such a small, concise kitab, but the benefits are so tremendous. I read it myself and I'm affected by it, I benefit from it. Allah Ta'ala bless me and He bless you also with His ma'rifat and His recognition, because that recognition will be a means of qurb and closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, dunya mein, our reason of coming into this dunya, this is actually the maqsad, so that we can gain the recognition of Allah, which would then be the means of gaining His qurb. Otherwise, how is it with the case of animals? They came, they done this, they done that, and they ate, they drank, they walked, and they left. What will be the difference between us and them? Ilahi maqsood man, tu hi wa rizaye tu, muhabbat wa ma'rifat khud bideh. Oh Allah, my objective is only you and your pleasure. Therefore, bless me with your recognition and your love. We should read it a few times. We should read it over and over. Hazrat Khaja Muhammad Masoom, they used to read this year as a wird, as a wazifa. They used to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this over and over again. Let us make dua. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية في الدين والدنيا والآخرة. So this ma'rifat, which was granted to insan and man because of the barakat of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Buzurgan Deen made so much of mehnat for it, and they carried out so much of the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم بحرمة سيد النبي الكريم صلى الله عليه وسلم.